This is Floyne Celyn Farm, a 250-acre farm in Lower Chapel, Breconshire, Wales. Mervin Price, who is also church secretary of the Lower Chapel Baptist Church, has lived on this farm all his life. The farm has been in his family for 3 generations, and Mervin farmed it with the help of his wife Eleanor for the last 35 years. They rear cattle and sheep for sale and get extra income from some holiday cottages. They have never had a holiday, just the odd day off if there's an agricultural show. It's hard work, but it is all that Mervin has ever known. It's a way of life, he says. Worrying about the farm and other problems had become a way of life for Mervin too, until late last July when his whole life changed.
I couldn't cope with the worry of running the farm and the drought on the farm to start with, because I got a very high farm. The grass wasn't growing to have any crops to feed the cattle and the sheep the winter. That was some of the things, and I suddenly realised that, how should I say, I'd been a very sinful person, I suppose, and asking myself a lot of questions about this, that and the other, and I reached a real low really, and I suppose I've always prayed to God, and He's been with me all through my life really, but not on the personal level. And I reached a stage in my life where I didn't want to carry on. The worry was too much, and I sat down with the cows one day and just called out to God, and God heard me.
After Mervin prayed, nothing had seemed to have happened until he woke up the next day.
The next morning when I got up here and walked down the field to the cows there, I knew I was a different person. I was so happy. It's like I'd been sitting on an elephant all my life, and the elephant got up and walked away, and if you know what I mean, something was so light. And for the first week I didn't know really what had happened until I got in touch with Ivor.
Ivor is Ivor Williams, a Baptist minister who Mervin had met some months before when he had preached on an issue that Mervin had been struggling with. Ivor had only been in the area with his wife Penny for a few months. Before that, for 21 years, Ivor had been minister of Broadhaven Baptist Church, supported initially by a Bugby Home Mission grant. The church was growing, and Ivor and his wife Penny were very happy there, until the 1st of April 2009, when everything changed.
Last year at 3 o'clock in the morning, God woke me up. I say that, 1 minute I was fast asleep, and then suddenly I'm wide awake, and all I could think about was Breconshire.
Breconshire is in the southern part of mid Wales, in an area of beautiful mountains, hills and valleys. The 20 Baptist churches scattered across the county have found it tough in recent years. Many still see them as their local church and will attend events like the yearly Sankey music festivals, but most of the churches have a handful of members and are struggling to survive. Ivor felt God was calling him and Penny to work in this difficult mission field.
I was aware of the spiritual decline in Breconshire and the very real need there, and I felt God speaking to me through Matthew 10 and Luke 10 about Jesus sending the disciples 2 by 2 ahead of him to the different towns and villages to stay where they're welcome, to look for people of peace. And I felt that God was saying that Penny and I were the 2 by 2, that we were being called to go to the towns and villages of Breconshire to start new work by seeking out people who would be open, preferably people who are not yet Christians, but who are spiritually open and open hearts and open minds.
Penny, though, was certain their future was still in Broadhaven.
Well, at that stage I thought he'd got it all wrong, because we'd just come away from a retreat and we'd come back absolutely buzzing with Broadhaven and all we were going to do there. And suddenly he was talking about Breconshire and not Broadhaven. And it took me about 7 weeks to catch up with that, until I finally let go of the church and the house and the ministry and the village and everything, and felt like jelly. And then, but the next morning I woke up buzzing with Breconshire, and Broadhaven, where I'd just been praying everywhere, it had just gone.
Ivor and Penny spoke first to Peter Thomas at the Baptist Union of Wales and then Nick Bradshaw at the South Wales Baptist Association. Both Peter and Nick felt this was a calling of God, and thanks to the growing relationship between the BUW and the association in recent years, they have funded Ivor and Penny as a joint project.
We feel very privileged that we're able to do this work with funding. We thought we would have to find employment and do this in a part-time, but because of the Home Mission funding and the Baptist Union of Wales funding, we're able to spend all the time focusing on people in the community, building relationships and doing the work that God has called us to do.
Since coming to Breconshire, Ivor and Penny have been building relationships with local churches and with people across the county. They have now been joined by Anne Roberts. For 10 years, Anne was a missionary for BMS World Mission in Albania when she felt a calling back to Wales.
I expected to stay in Albania, maybe until retirement, but I was home for home assignment one summer and God very clearly called me to train for the ministry. It came as a huge surprise. I was looking forward to a pension and a bus pass, and I trained for 2 years at South Wales Baptist College in Cardiff. I always knew that God was calling me to Wales. God had also given me a burden for Breconshire, but just felt all the time that God was saying to me, think outside the box, that he had something slightly different for me to do. And a chance conversation with Ivor was when God seemed to be speaking to both of us and calling me to serve in Breconshire.
Anne was ordained in December and funded by the Baptist Union of Wales. She will be working pastorally with the churches in Breconshire to encourage them in their mission, whilst Penny and Ivor focus on engaging with those in the community. For Mervin, since July, he has seen miracles happen in his life and he has become bolder in his faith and actions. A field he mows every year for silage looked to be ruined in the summer when the sheep repeatedly broke in and grazed on it. Mervin prayed before mowing it and got 25 bales of silage, a bumper crop. Known as a very shy man who has rarely spoken publicly, the local community was gobsmacked when Mervin shared his testimony at this year's Sankey Festival. If we'd asked Mervin 6 months ago to be in this film, he would have refused.
The way my life has changed is really, God has taken over I'm working for God basically now. He's running the farm. I just do the day-to-day work, care for the husbandry, the livestock, and all the worry's gone, because I know God is on my side and working for me.
What happened to Mervin was not a direct result of anything that Penny or I did. I do believe it was a direct answer to prayer. There's a lady called Barbara who's been praying for Mervin, his family, that chapel, that valley for 15 years, a real intercessor. She, I think, was the only human involvement in what happened to Mervin. But at the same time, us coming here and what's happened to Mervin, I do believe are linked. God just seems to be doing a new thing in Breconshire. He called us to come here. He answered Barbara's prayer in Mervin's life, and other things have been happening, and we just see signs of God at work.